some hope given that the JAXA Slim lander was able to wake up before the future versions of the Nova Sea lander and other landers from Intuitive Machines will be more fortified to survive being in the shadow of a lunar night. Intuitive Machines also looking to launch one more time this year in the fourth quarter. Firefly Aerospace also has its eyes on the moon with its Blue Ghost lunar lander, also set to launch later this year. And depending on its readiness, as well as the readiness of NASA's Viper rover, Astrobotic may take another crack at landing on the moon with its much larger Griffin lander. Now, T-minus 34 minutes, 12 seconds and counting. At this point, the fueling process should be getting underway. Here's what we're looking at for that. You see near the base of the Falcon 9 rocket. 2022, the NileSat 301 mission. Flights 8 through 12 were a series of 5 Starlink missions. Those were Starlink 4-25 on July 24th, Starlink 4-27 on August 19th, Starlink 4-36 on October 20th, Starlink 5-1 on December 28th, and Starlink 5-4 on February 12th, 2023. The 13th flight of this booster was on March 9th of 2023. That was the OneWeb 17 mission, launching a batch of 40 of OneWeb's broadband internet satellites, built right here on Florida's Space Coast at the Airbus OneWeb Satellites facility on Merritt Island. This mission was the third and final dedicated launch of OneWeb satellites for SpaceX. OneWeb signed an agreement with SpaceX to launch 3 batches of its satellites after it lost access to the Soyuz due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The 14th launch of this booster was the Arabsat 7B, also known as Batter 8. It's launched on May 27th, 2023. This telecommunications satellite was built by Airbus for Arabsat. Now provides C and Ku band coverage for Europe, the Middle East, and Central Asia. And flights 15 through 18 were also Starlink missions. Those were Starlink 6-7 on July 28th, 6-23 on October 18th, Group 6-30 on November 28th, and finally Group 6-38 on January 29th of this year, which of course brings us to this launch, Starlink Group 6-44, which hopefully will be ready to lift off from pad 39A in 22 minutes and 22 seconds. It is, and the angle of the solar panels, we're actually getting the sun reflecting off of those and back at our friend Pete Carson's camera, which is allowing us to see the station as it passes by over the Space Coast. So at the same time as you're seeing a Falcon 9 rocket live on the screen to the right, you're also seeing several humans up there who were brought aboard to the space station by another Falcon 9 rocket. And of course, the Soyuz for those on the Russian segment. So be sure to wave hey to the 7 folks flying high above, going at a blistering 17,500 miles per hour. Going back to the live chat here, I want to thank a few more folks as we continue on the last 10 minutes of the count. Another great channel that is also covering the advances and exploration on the space front. Tim Urin for a $2 super chat. Tim says, bringing the heavens closer to Earth. Thank you, Tim. Kathy Shomik with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Kathy. One of our wonderful channel members, Glenn A, with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Glenn. Hugh Gelston upgraded their membership to the Mission Specialist level. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that, Hugh. Guile Paul with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Gail, excuse me. James Jester with a $5 super chat as well. Thank you, James. Tim K with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Tim. Who says this is the best part of living in Florida, referring to seeing all the launches we get here, which is very fortunate. Aaron Crowder with a $2 super chat saying thank you for everything. You're very welcome. Pedro Sealy with a $2.79 Canadian dollars super chat. Thank you, Pedro. E. McCoy with a $2 super chat. Thank you, E. Jay Mace with the same. Thank you, Jay. And Mr. Llama with a $10 super chat and a little bit of love. We're now T-minus 7 minutes, 55 seconds and counting. As we are coming up less than a minute from the chill down sequence beginning. It's a good time to talk about the vehicle that will be supporting this flight tonight. Of course, SpaceX's workhorse, the Falcon 9 rocket, stands at 70 meters or 229 feet tall with a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. 2/3 of that made up by the first stage. Today's booster, as we've talked about with the flight history, has flown 18 times before with a tail number of 1062 in the SpaceX fleet. At the base of the first stage are 9 Merlin 1D engines, which burn rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen and produce 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment, you can see those black carbon landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship, a short fall of gravitas. Above the first stage is the inner stage. It's a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image you see there on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it falls through the atmosphere tail first, like a big old dart. The top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. The first stage main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. The second stage engine nozzle is housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, as we close in on the final 6 minutes of the count, the upper stage is powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle, which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 200,000 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight to place the 23 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same propellant mix, RP1 or rocket-grade kerosene, and liquid oxygen, same as the first stage. It will ignite a third time after deployment of the Starlink satellites for a deorbit burn, which will drive the upper stage back into the atmosphere, where it will burn up, helping to eliminate the risk of any unnecessary space debris during this mission. Coming in on 5.5 minutes before flight, above the second stage, of course, at the top of the rocket. Payload fairings, the things that house the 23 Starlink satellites. They're made up of a carbon composite material. It's 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall and 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. The two halves of the payload fairing will be recovered a little further downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. They gently solder and return them to Cape Canaveral, where they will be refurbished and reused on a future mission. We are now T-minus 4 minutes, 38 seconds and counting. We are now getting some video. We'll be bringing in the audio from SpaceX as we're closing in on the point where the strong back retract sequence begins. We'll start with the clamp arms underneath the payload fairing opening up. The transporter erector, as they were testing earlier today, will recline about a degree and a half away from the vehicle. And it does not appear as though the clamp arms have opened up, which is certainly not a great sign. It's something that they were working on earlier today, and as they've moved to a wider shot, they may be troubleshooting something, but they don't have. Okay, they're open now, so looks like they've just were a little bit slow on that process. Start to see the transporter erector move back away from the vehicle.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
I'm due to call out for Stage 1 LOX load. Last fueling item will be for Stage 2 LOX load, and we are seeing a gap between the transporter erector and the Falcon9, so it has reclined that necessary degree and a half. So it appears as we're coming into the last 2.5 minutes that things remain on track for launch tonight. We'll continue to monitor the progress as we come through the final couple minutes of the countdown.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with confirmation of Stage 2 LOX load complete, the Falcon 9 is now fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. To come into the final minute and a half here, the venting you're seeing are the ground gas closeouts.
Ground gas closeouts.
With that call out, we're coming into the final minute before lift. 45 seconds is when the SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch if they are ready to fly tonight. The SpaceX feed is about 10 seconds slower than real time, so you'll hear that call out on a slight
Falcon9
delay.
is in startup. Go for launch.
You're seeing some great tracking views from our friend Pete Carstens. A little bit of a jellyfish effect as you saw the payload fairings falling away. Now a little over 4 minutes into flight. Coming up next will be the first stage entry burn, coming up at T plus 6 minutes and 10 seconds. That burn will last about 23 seconds. I'm going to call out that the flight continues nominally as we enter into the 5th minute of the mission. That band you're seeing just beyond the Falcon 9 second stage, a little bit of a glint from the edge of the Earth. Just a touch of the atmosphere against the setting sun. Now about 5.5 minutes into flight. In about 30 seconds, the first stage entry burn will begin. From P. Carstens with Max Q Productions, still getting some great views of the second stage. The Merlin vacuum engine continuing to burn. Now 6 minutes into flight. And there you see the start of the entry burn. Caught by Pete Carstens. Well done, Pete. This burn lasts about 20 seconds or so. Coming to a conclusion now in real time. You're seeing the slight delay on the SpaceX feed, as you can see from the onboard cameras. As the vehicle continues to make its way towards the drone ship. You can see the speedometer for the Falcon 9 first stage booster is slowing dramatically as it makes its way down towards the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. That entry burn's set to begin, or excuse me, the landing burn set to begin in just about 30 seconds.
Stage 1 transonic.
The call for stage 1 transonic is now slowed to below the speed of sound. Coming up at the start of the entry burn here or the landing burn
Terminal
in
guidance.
real time. We'll see it here on the SpaceX feed in a few seconds.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There you see the landing burn beginning. We should see some drone ship views on the right-hand side of your screen momentarily.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Those landing legs are out.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And a good touchdown of this Falcon 9 first stage booster, tail number 1062, for a 19th time landing safely.
MVAC shut down. MVAC shut down.
Good call on the MVAC shutdown. Should hear a call out on
Nominal orbit insertion.
that orbital insertion. The Falcon 9 second stage will remain in a coast phase now in that parking orbit until T plus 54 minutes and 11 seconds. That burn of the second stage Merlin vacuum engine is going to happen for just a brief 2 seconds, setting up for Starlink satellite deployment at T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 20 seconds.